welcome to the Better Beyond 50 Summit.
Thank you so much for having me. It's fantastic to be here, Melissa.
Yeah, I'm excited because we're really kind of focusing on sleep. And the reason I wanted to talk to you about sleep is because many, I would say like 99% of the women in our Better Beyond 50 community have sleep problems. And one of the things that I'm hearing a lot, and I'm sure that you hear this a lot in your practice, they're either having a hard time falling asleep, or maybe they fall asleep and they're having a hard time actually staying asleep. They're waking up, 3 or 4 times a night. Can we talk a little bit about what are some of the main contributors to sleep problems? Is it hormonal? Is it lifestyle? Is it a combination? What's sort of going on here?
Well, from the last time we talked, that we believe there's a lifestyle that fits every person. And, it has to do with their diet, and resting and going to sleep is a huge part of it. So is exercise and reducing stress. And we believe in addition to diet that supplements can be important. But sleep problems are not just for women. They're prevalent. Men have them. The older you get, too, it seems to start to become a problem. But everyone needs to let's start with, 6.5, 7.5 hours of sleep. Nobody needs more than 8, really, except maybe teenagers. And they actually do need more sleep. There's been studies that say they need, like 9 hours.
Yeah.
But little kids and adults, we need a minimum 6.5 to 7.5 hours is probably perfect of sleep, including deep sleep, because your body needs to detoxify. You need to regenerate your brain. Your brain cells actually shrink, and cerebral spinal fluid flows through the brain while you're in this deep sleep to clean out your brain and detoxify your head and stuff like that. So it's really, really critically important. Everyone knows that. If you're going to have good energy the next day, if you're going to, have clear thinking and these things, you got to get deep sleep. I even have this little black thing band on my wrist right now because it tracks my sleep. I wear this all the time. I get my steps. It's also a watch. It tracks my sleep. It's amazing that what shows up on my cell phone. I could go here and actually look at my sleep pattern, how much you're rolling around, and things like that. So that's how important it is. It's I'm in the health business and I'm focusing on sleep and getting a good night's sleep. So one of the reasons you back to your question of why you might not be sleeping. For one thing, our circadian rhythm does get disrupted. Now, that's a hormonal rhythm. It's cortisol in the morning that drops down throughout the day. Other hormones kick in to try to relax you and help you sleep at nighttime. And it is that circadian rhythm. We're on a daily cyclical rhythm. We are what are called, we're not nocturnal, we're diurnal. So nocturnal is an animal that's awake at night. We're called diurnal. We're supposed to be awake in the day. Get our work done and whatever it is, and then go to bed. So the circadian rhythm works on the idea that when it gets dark, there's nothing to do. You should be, going to sleep and then be up with the dawn. I know that when I toured Thomas Jefferson's house, that there's this, you get the tour and there's this bedroom, and what he said was that if you can see the hands on the clock, it's time to get up. Oh. So basically that's the goal. Yeah. And then you can have a productive day, and it's okay to work hard and use your brain, use your body, whatever, and get a good night's sleep every night. Really critical. And it's important to remember too that needs to be done every day, not just weekdays and not just weekends. So one should actually try to avoid sleeping in on weekends. Maybe that's the beginning of during the week, you're not on a real cycle. So you should get up at the same time pretty much 7 days a week. Doesn't mean you have to go to work weekends. You could have fun or go do something. But so one thing is that you're not on a cyclical circadian rhythm, up with the dawn and then in bedtime when it gets dark, especially with the artificial lights. And, if they are fluorescent, which I would never use in my home, those have weird light that isn't even natural, so that plus all the electromagnetic frequencies of the computer and the TV, they're interrupting the circadian rhythm. So once you get through that kind of a cyclical day-night, we're diurnal, we need to go to bed when it gets dark, get up when it's light, then you have things like blood sugar, almost everyone's going to refer you to blood sugar. Things like alcohol. And so those become very important. What you do, in the hours before bed are very, very important. I know myself, if I have even one glass of beer or wine, that I usually wake up too early. And what that is your cortisol's rising too early. Your cortisol should rise. And remember, that's a hormonal thing. It's not a sex hormone, but it's in that family. And if that's rising too early, you're going to wake up. Right. Cortisol's job is to wake you up.
Right.
And what might trigger it is a dip in blood sugar. So if your blood sugar drops, cortisol's job is to raise it, but it will also obviously wake you up. You're going to have more energy and that kind of a thing. So I recommend to people that they actually eat a little bit of a snack before bedtime. Just, protein, maybe a little bit of fat, but not a lot of carbohydrates.
Yep.
You just want to, protein actually stimulates glucagon from the pancreas instead of insulin, and so it'll stabilize your blood sugar throughout the night.
Right. Yeah, awesome.
Yeah, so that's just a couple things. Not eating right, alcohol, not being on a good circadian rhythm, not understanding how important it is to turn off all electronics, go to bed. You should probably read a book almost by candlelight. Now I don't do that, but I do use a very soft light and just read normally.
Right.
And that's pretty important.
Right. It's funny you talked about what you do before bed, because I there's a client that I'm consulting with right now whose sleep is constantly disrupted, and we did some troubleshooting, and I said, well, let's talk about what you do before bed, and she plays Scrabble online with her 80-something-year-old aunt. And I said, okay, because she's not drinking alcohol and she's eating pretty balanced meals. We kind of went through a lot of the checklist that you just gave. And I said, okay, the problem is you're engaging in something stimulating, because not only is it the light of, she's on her iPad, but Scrabble is a very mentally stimulating game.
Yes.
So I said, well, we got to work on a plan here. So it's important, I think, for our listeners to realize that you have to look at what your behavior is right before bed. There's no question. It's stimulating.
Absolutely. And, a lot of people at that age, too, they take a lot of naps.
Yeah.
And so you have to be really smart about not napping. Napping can be a good thing. If you just need 5 minutes, like as your blood sugar's down and you want to take a little rest during the afternoon, and you've been up since early, just limit it to 15 minutes, 20 at the most. Do not sleep for 2 hours in the afternoon, or even an hour.
Okay.
Even a half hour isn't good. You want to limit your naps. And if you're feeling drowsy early, like right after dinner, you're probably not eating right. But avoid that urge to just take a little cat nap after dinner, because it's going to affect your sleep.
Right.
You get up and go for a walk or something like that.
I've heard, speaking of naps, I've heard that there are certain times of day that are better. Like, I think it may have been Paul Chek, I can't remember, but like sometime, I think I heard something like a little after 11 and a little after 3 for 15 minutes. Is there any truth to that? I don't remember what the thinking was, because like that's when your cortisol's dipping the most. I don't remember what it was.
Well, in the afternoon is when it dips the most, except for at night. So it's going to be highest in the morning. It's going to drop down to about noon, might stabilize a little bit, but by late afternoon, it's going to be at its lowest. And so, there's an old thing about tea time, right? Why was 4 o'clock tea time?
Yeah.
Well, it's because when people needed, they were either going to take a nap or drink some tea.
Right.
So, now it's more sociable to drink some tea and I'm going to have a little tea. So I totally agree with the afternoon nap, and 15 minutes is all you're allowed.
Yeah, okay. You mentioned something about the importance of deep sleep when you were sort of explaining how important it is to be getting the 8 hours a night. How does someone know if they're getting deep sleep? I know you said you have some sort of device that's tracking sleep. Is there a way for someone to know just by listening to their bodies?
I think that if you're not getting deep sleep, that you're going to have mental fogginess issues. And you know a lot about that. We've talked about that before, Melissa, where you just aren't thinking clearly. and you walk around in the fog, these kind of things. Some people start to think that's normal. And a big thing they're not getting is their sleep. Remember, I always hold up my hand and go DRESS,
Yep.
diet, rest, exercise, stress reduction, supplement. They all blend together. It's one thing.
Right.
Like your behavior matters.
Yep.
And sleep is one element. It's 20% of a healthy lifestyle.
Right.
You got to get your sleep. You got to get your exercise. You got to eat right. So you're going to know if you're off. Hopefully you know if you're off.
Right.
I mean, again, some people are so used to being dim-witted, and walking around like, you don't know what's going on, that they think it's normal. But trust us, folks, it's not normal.
Right.
You should feel high energy. You should have a sense of satiation. You shouldn't be craving snacks and things. You should have also a good sense of well-being. You actually were designed perfectly to be happy, believe it or not. And so a sense of well-being, things are good,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, not if your house is on fire, but, otherwise you should feel a good sense of energy, clear thinking kind of thing, good mood, and satiated, not craving anything.
Yeah.
If you're doing all those things right. So if you're not doing all those things right, or if you're having symptoms of, it doesn't matter what they are, tiredness, fatigue, again, the cloudy thinking, could even be worse, digestive and sinus issues and headaches and on and on and on, then things aren't right. And those 5 things are designed to fix it.
Can you comment a little bit about, so the lifestyle is important, making sure that we're eating right and managing stress and moving our bodies. Can you talk a little bit about how certain health conditions can contribute, like fungal infections? Like someone who has a fungal infection, they're not, and I know this from personal experience, that will disrupt your sleep. And I notice, if I don't stick to my antifungal diet, if I even deviate the slightest, I will be up between 1 and 4 o'clock in the morning for the next day or two. So can you talk about why that happens? Sort of why does it trigger sleep? What's going on?
Yeah, well, it's actually any infection. So fungal infections are not unlike others, infestations of parasites or bacterial overgrowth, dysbiosis, these kinds of things. They're an affront to the immune system. And the immune system actually, some people will say it's more active at night. So if your immune system, or actually it's supposed to quiet down at night. What happens at nighttime is cortisol goes down, and so you should not have high blood sugar. You should be able to sleep pretty soundly. But we know that the immune system will actually, it's like a stressor. It's an irritant of sorts. So it will actually raise your cortisol and therefore cause sleep problems. Now, usually people are tired enough to fall asleep,
yep.
But because of this extra immune activity that shouldn't be there, then you're going to have extra, cortisol can be bumping up and it can wake you up. So bugs can, if you have infections, whether they be fungal or parasitic or bacterial, you can be waking up and having bad night's sleep. And so absolutely, we check everybody for these things. Overgrowth of anything isn't good for you, and it's a stressor that'll, again, affect the sleep cycle.
Would Lyme disease kind of fall under that category? Someone dealing with Lyme could have disrupted sleep?
Yeah, viruses as well. I may not have said it. Now, I haven't studied viruses as much as the others, but the load, they call it viral load on the body, mm-hmm. is going to affect your stress hormones, and you could easily end up with sleep problems.
So how does somebody know if their sleep disturbances are blood sugar related, if they're related to a bacterial infection, a fungal infection? How can they kind of troubleshoot that?
Yeah. Well, the first thing that we ask people to do who aren't doing the testing, now, you know me, I teach a course in lab work, and every client gets tested. So we test for the right diets and, bacterial overgrowth. We test the immune system, and all the hormones and things, digestion, your ability to detoxify. All these things will affect sleep. If you're not detoxifying properly, you're toxic. Well, nighttime is when you're supposed to be detoxifying. The Chinese call the time between like 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning and daybreak liver time. Well, what's the liver do? It detoxifies your body.
Yeah.
And as I mentioned earlier, the brain also detoxifies during sleep. So viral load and parasites and bacteria and fungus, they all will keep you toxic. And so you're going to have a hard time sleeping. Now, how do you know, was your question?
Yeah.
We obviously run tests, as I said, but let's say you weren't running tests and you would first stabilize your blood sugar. So you're going to sort of rule out blood sugar problems. So you're going to not drink alcohol for a while. Just quit it for 90 days. You can do that. Even if you did it for 3 or 4 weeks, it would be helpful. And then, don't eat too late. Eat dinner at a, say, reasonable dinner time for most people. But have a little snack of some protein type thing before bedtime and see if you can stabilize your blood sugar. And if it doesn't, if you're still waking up and it's not sleep apnea, which is a whole different problem, then you would probably go on to the next thing to rule out. So rule out blood sugar problems first, and then, that's your detective work leading you to what the real problem is.
Right, that's good. So stabilize the blood sugar. Can you kind of just give some examples of healthy sources of protein and fat to have before bed, just so people can kind of...
Yeah, well, I'm kind of an ancestral diet guy, so I like my protein to come from animal sources. I eat meat. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. If you tolerated it, dairy can provide a lot of protein. Otherwise, lentils, beans, there's plenty of ways to get some protein. And I'm not talking about any bigger than the size of a deck of cards or half a deck. Yep. So like even just a bean type thing, if you're the vegetable type protein person, but no bigger than a deck of cards, size of a deck of cards. That's 2-3 ounces for most people, and see how you do.
Yeah.
And you might be really surprised. Now, you could also take some supplements like magnesium, tends to relax you. It's actually a mineral tranquilizer.
Yeah.
And there's all sorts of fancy combinations of things you can do. I don't have my own line of supplements or sell them or anything, but I know a few things about them. And taking some things like that can be helpful.
Yeah.
Little CalMag, yeah.
Right. Yeah, I do the magnesium, and I find what helps me. I do have to eat something right before bed, even if I've had dinner, because I do wake up. I have a nice heaping scoop of either like almond butter, raw almond butter, or cashew butter, and that'll do the trick for me.
And that does the trick for you based on your genetic requirements for food and your blood sugar levels and insulin sensitivity and things like that. For other people, they might need something a little more high purine, like a can of sardines.
Ooh.
Believe it or not, I mean, that's a lot of protein, but there's good fat in there. If you get the best sardines are with the extra virgin olive oil, I found, and it's a good snack for some people because it stabilizes the glucagon release from the pancreas. Gotcha. Glucagon counteracts insulin. Yeah. Insulin drops your blood sugar, your cortisol rise, and you wake up.
Gotcha. Okay.
You want to avoid that. Yep.
Can you comment on the role that serotonin can play in sleep? I did an interview actually with Trudy Scott, and she talked about how when someone has low serotonin levels, it can actually trigger, waking up at night. Can you just comment on that? What is that about?
Yeah, well, I think it needs to be in balance. So I'm not a big guy for taking things that would raise serotonin, like 5-HTP or tryptophan. You could take those and it would raise your serotonin. You could also take some tyrosine to raise your dopamine. Those are both kind of your more relaxation versus stimulant for most people. And so that's a trick. And I'd rather you get it from food and from good digestion. So your serotonin, most of it's made in the gut through the assimilation of amino acids, which come from protein. Mm-hmm. So you eat protein. protein is full of amino acids. It basically is, and then your body has to digest them and break them down into the individual neurotransmitters that you're talking about. So there's still nothing like eating protein, having a real good digestion and assimilation. So by the way, you might just add that to the list. If you have poor digestion, you could easily have poor sleep because you're not assimilating and turning over processing your proteins, amino acids into the right neurotransmitters.
Right.
So you hit on something that's very important, neurotransmitter levels. But they're important all day long. Yeah. And at sleep, it might be a couple in particular that you're not assimilating well. But as for just throwing supplements at something, I'm not a huge fan of that, except for temporarily in the beginning. Mm-hmm. So if someone comes and they just can't sleep at all, and you can't even get them to get up and eat breakfast because they're just so bent out of shape, well then, you can use some of these tricks of the trade, like extra 5-HTP or something.
Yeah.
But so that's my general. And I don't hope that doesn't disagree with anything your expert said, because
no,
I'm not an expert in that area, but I know enough to know that you want to take care of everything and do things gently and not just take this for that.
Right.
Because after a while, it's not going to work.
Right. How does someone actually know if their serotonin levels are low? Like, is there a way to get tested for that?
Oh, yeah. There's urine testing for oh, absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
Run the neurotransmitter test. And again, it's how you want to fix it that is the key, because you can use that test to sell supplements, which we don't do. We go, hey, look, we need to check. Why aren't you, if you're eating lots of good protein, why aren't you assimilating? Why don't you have balance between that and the other neurotransmitters?
Right. Yeah.
Right.
And that's what I love about your approach, because you assess people, but then you say, okay, we want to get to the root. Let's talk about lifestyle, because it was a good chance that your lifestyle got you here. So doesn't it make sense to use your lifestyle to rectify the situation?
It's lifestyle and your body's ability to handle the environment. Uh-huh. Like a lot of people now are running the genetics testing, which I've done, and that's fine. But genetics are about 8% of your health and well-being. The other 92% is epigenetics. It is your lifestyle and the environment. So there's the environment and what you're doing to sort of defend yourself from it, in a sense, and assimilate what's good in it, rather than genetics, although they're important. We're into the epigenetic factors, like what can we control through diet and rest and exercise and stress reduction and supplements.
Right. Yeah, and that's a great point, because I think that there are a lot of people that sort of just say, well, these are my genes. It's just in my family, but you're saying 92% is actually in your hands?
Well, that's, being banned. Those are the numbers being bandied about by the people I consider smarter than me that study this stuff. They get into all the rocket science of it, and I'm a lifestyle coach, and I run labs, but they're not looking for any specific disease to treat. I'm not a doctor. I don't want to diagnose and treat you. You've had enough diagnosis and treatment by the time you get to me. Most people have been to 8 different practitioners and had 5 different diagnoses. They don't need another diagnosis.
Right.
They need straightening out and to get the epigenetics working in your favor.
Right. Can you talk a little bit about sleep apnea? You mentioned that before. First of all, what is it? And then, how does someone overcome it naturally? Like, I've heard of, using, I think it's called the CPAP machine.
Yeah.
I've had some clients that use that, which some of them really don't like to use it, because I guess it's kind of uncomfortable and noisy.
Well, there are less invasive devices. Even just, it's been proven that if you use a certain jaw extender, like a bite plate in your mouth, putting the jaw forward opens up the airway, that's flapping around there. So, but the bad thing about sleep apnea is you get toxic. You basically, the lungs are a huge detoxification organ. They exchange, carbon dioxide for oxygen. You take in oxygen, and your body uses it up, and it produces carbon dioxide. So when you're not breathing properly, you're going to build up carbon dioxide in the body, and that's a toxic gas. It's poisonous, basically. So you don't want that. Now, your brain has built-in signalers that will wake you up. Hey, too much carbon dioxide, wake up. So that's why people who stop breathing, which is basically what sleep apnea is, it's a pause in breathing. Apnea is a pause in breathing. So, you wake up, which is a good thing. You want to wake up.
Right.
But that's it. There's tests for it. You can go get tested. But the sort of best, and actually different forms of sleep apnea to remember, and only a physician can really sort of diagnose which one you have and that kind of thing. But losing weight has been sort of the biggest way for our clients, because you end up getting kind of fatty around the throat area that's affected,
Right.
and so losing weight is probably one of the best things. Now, that doesn't mean skinny people don't get sleep apnea sometimes, but it's really the weight, larger neck size, kind of a thing. If you still have your tonsils, they could get enlarged. Even a fat tongue could kind of do it. Also, people with like GERD, or acid reflux,
Yeah.
they tend to have it a little bit more. Smokers are known to have more sleep apnea stuff. So there are some risk factors, but it affects people of all ages, races, genders, and like my mom has sleep apnea. She's kind of likes it, or she likes seeing her doctor and doing things and having stuff around her. I don't know what it is, but she's, she gained weight when she got on meds at 80 years old.
Yeah.
She's got, so
Yeah.
she doesn't want to listen to me.
Yeah, I hear you. I hear you. I've got the same issue in my family. It's kind of tough.
Family makes the worst clients.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Another common challenge I hear with sleep is waking to use the bathroom.
Yeah, sure.
Suggestions around that? I mean, do you just basically stop drinking past a certain hour? What do you do?
Yeah, that having bladder issues should be looked at. You should get checked out that you don't have something wrong with your bladder. Like with men, obviously it's the prostate. The prostate puts pressure on the bladder. It's not holding as much. It's more sensitive to being full, so you get signals. Most guys that I talk to, though, they can't figure out if they're waking up and then once they're awake realize, oh, I could use the bathroom,
Right.
or
Right.
is that what woke them up?
Right.
And they can't figure it
Right.
out.
Yep.
So like I'm 62. I'm taking very good care of all my body parts, including prostate. Like things. Like I think everyone should take vitamins and minerals and essential fatty acids and something for their gender. Related to their, like men should make sure they're getting enough zinc and the other things in their diet that can help keep the prostate from getting enlarged, because that will become a problem. And so you'd want to check that out if you're waking up and feeling like you have to pee all the time, if it's really consistent. But I have found that I can drink water before bed and sleep 6.5 hours. And when I get up, I do hit the bathroom, but it's not waking me up. And I know I'm just one guy, but I'm saying if you really take good care of yourself and check out things like the prostate, and women have bladder problems too. Obviously, look at TV now with these commercials, like the little bladder being your best friend and making you do stuff. That's not normal, and you don't have a drug deficiency.
Yeah, the bladder, like with the hand, holding
Yeah.
the hand.
So I think there are a lot of infections that aren't being looked at that affect the bladder in a way. I think people have very low grade infections that aren't yet a UTI.
Yeah.
It could be related to the kidneys, obviously. And there's lots of people walking around with lots of inflammatory conditions that are undiagnosed or undiscovered. They're just walking around with a lot of inflammation and low-grade infections, overgrowth, biofilms, biotoxins, and things. And it just, we talked before about these things create chaos in your body. I call it metabolic chaos because it interferes with metabolic processes, and it can cascade. So one person will end up with one set of problems, another person a different set of problems, because we are individuals, unique, and all that. So that's again why our approach, which is to be a generalist. I don't specialize in anything, but we generally get a person improved. Again, it's us against the environment, and we have our genetic, dispositions, if you will, but it's lifestyle that's going to get you where you want to go and ward off the bad things in the environment. Right. Until it gets so bad that it just kills us all, but that's a long way off, we hope.
How does someone know, just in case someone's sort of wondering, if they do have a bladder infection, like, can they just go to a regular MD? What kind of testing do they need?
Yeah, they should. You should absolutely go get checked out. But, they're going to look for certain things and prescribe certain things for the symptoms and maybe not really get to all of the root of it, if you will. And I'm not saying that the root cause is always discoverable either. I think that we are 50 years away from having a test that you can do, or a machine where you can put in some blood or put in a cup of urine, and it's going to tell you everything you need to know. There is no test like that. There are many things in the metabolic infinity that are undiscovered and unknown, and so there are causal areas. We just can't figure them out. Right. But we can have an effect on those causes, again, through the lifestyle, epigenetic influence. Like we want to influence how you get older. You want to get older in the safest way and in the healthiest way, the most function on the most levels possible. And so can someone go to the doctor and get checked out? Yes. But really, you want to lean towards the functional practitioners. And I teach a course in functional lab work and natural lifestyles that produce better outcomes for people. So if your regular physician seems to be missing it, if you think he's missing something, he's probably missing something. Trust your intuition and start looking for a health detective that's trained in other ways of looking at things and whose solution to everything isn't another prescription.
Right. So we talked about the bladder issues. We talked about blood sugar regulation and fungal infection, bacterial infections. What if someone's sleep challenges are completely outside of them and their husband snores, or their husband has sleep apnea, or their husband works late and they're coming in, 3 o'clock in the morning? Advice for that woman who's she's sleeping great, it's outside of her. What do you say?
This is really tough, but there's something called sleep hygiene, and it's generally referred to as sleep hygiene. That's making sure the room is really dark and that the TV's there's not a lot of electromagnetic frequencies, and that your feet are warm. We found that people just putting on a pair of socks, good. But as far as the darkness and the sound, you want to put sleep guards on your face, like make sure it is dark for you and try to keep the noise to a minimum. And, if someone's kicking you and snoring right next to your ear, then that's to be avoided. And you should at least get yourself out of that environment temporarily. It's nothing wrong with going into another bedroom or something to try to get a good night's sleep for a few nights. Yeah. And everyone's going to have to live with that. Yeah. Even I got to tell you, hope he doesn't hear this, but my own son, he and his wife work different shifts, and they can't seem to, she's waking him up all the time, coming in the middle of the night because she works, and that's her shift. Yeah. And so, I said, you got to go sleep in another room. Yeah. Don't let her wake you up, man. She's ruining your sleep. She's ruining. Now I tell her too, and I love my daughter-in-law. We're all very tight and close, so there's no problems, folks. Yeah. I'm just saying. To my son, my own son, I'm saying, you have a spare room. man, go crash in there for a few nights a week, because, and then you just got to do it. Well, waking up in the middle of the night is ruining it. Men have been tested; they've lowered testosterone. Those that work night shift, guaranteed low testosterone.
Yeah.
And it's because you're screwing with the circadian rhythm. Yeah. It's affecting the sex hormone, and all kinds of things.
Yeah.
And not to mention that you're not detoxifying your brain.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's kind of funny because even in my relationship, my fiance has this thing where he's so exhausted at the end of the day when we're watching TV together at night, he'll fall asleep.
Yeah.
And what would happen was he'd fall asleep for a couple hours. I'd go to bed by 10ish. And he'd come up, I don't know, midnight or 1, because he would naturally wake up, and I was waking up. And I was like, all right, this has got to change, because my sleep is so sacred to me. Like, you don't want to mess with me when I haven't slept. And so we basically kind of had to come up with a little arrangement where I was like, listen, if you fall asleep on the couch, then please stay there. Or, go watch TV in bed. I don't like to watch TV in bed because I find that it disrupts my sleep. And I'm like, if that's what you got to do and you can fall asleep in bed, that's fine.
Yeah.
But it's, we have to sort of like figure these things out when we're in a relationship, because at the end of the day, if we're not sleeping at night, it is really wreaking havoc on our health.
Yeah. Let me say this, that if that's the only thing you have to worry about in a relationship, it can be worked out, right? Like, it's about mutual respect, understanding, being in reality.
Yeah.
This is important. What are the priorities? Yeah. And other than that, it's just, here's my rules.
Yeah, exactly.
Don't wake me up.
Exactly. Yeah. So speaking of waking up, like if someone is, their sleep cycles are funky and they're still trying to get that circadian rhythm down. Let's say they are waking up at like 1 or 2. Do you recommend like that they just get up for the day, or do they try to stay in bed and fall back asleep? What?
Yeah, I would say you can, if you have to get up, get up, but try to do something relaxing. Try to create a routine. Like for me, I tend to pray a lot. Like I can breathe deeply, and maybe after about 10 breaths, and I'm praying. Try to have a spiritual life, and I if it's something on my mind, you try to clear it, and deep breathing, and even I've tried it, and it works, but I don't like the idea of it. Hypnosis, like there's something weird about it to me that I don't like, but it works, but just the breathing part and getting, your body back to normal oxygen levels, and sometimes a little snack or something. It might just be blood sugar, and try to go back to sleep. Yeah. Don't stay up. Try to go back to bed. Absolutely try to go back to sleep. Find something that you can do. Now, it might be you take a walk around the garden. For different people, it's going to be different things. But you find something to make you go back to sleep.
Yeah, I found that the few times where that's happened and I try to stay awake, my whole day is shot. Like I literally can't function the rest of the day.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'm like you. Sleep is sacred.
Yeah.
And it's a pleasant thing.
Yeah, it's great.
I like sleeping.
Me too. When you can get that clock working properly, it's amazing.
There's nothing like a good night's sleep.
I know.
Maybe it's your pillow.
Yeah. What does it mean, by the way? Like you talked about, so then in a healthy body, the cortisol's rising, first thing in the morning, and it's slowly coming down. And at night, as the sun is coming down and setting, naturally it should be coming down. What happens, when someone sort of has like an afternoon crash, but then like they get their second wind at like 9 or 10 o'clock at night, like when they should be going to sleep? Is that a sign like their adrenals are off? What does that mean?
Yeah, that's really a good question. Well, believe it or not, I think it's the autonomic nervous system playing a big part of it. So we have people who are more sympathetic dominant, which is your fight-flight mechanism, and more people who are parasympathetic. They're rest and digest. And one's kind of like the rabbit, one's kind of like the hare. Believe it or not, the parasympathetic dominance, the people who are more laid back generally, not your A personalities who are in fight-flight more, but the others, they tend to be like endless energy type people, and they get a lot of second wind, and they're just in this mode of being night owls, and they need to be a bit disciplined in going to bed. So the sympathetic dominant types, your A personalities, again, when you just lean more towards fight flight than you towards, we call it rest and digest.
Yeah.
Well, you'll find them, going to bed, hit the pillow, they're out, but they might wake up and go back to sleep. They're all day long kind of a thing. But parasympathetics, which I happen to be one, endless energy. When I need to sleep, I need to sleep, and I can sleep sound, and the rest of the time I can go all day long, all night long. Yeah. I can get a second wind. I can work till 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, but I don't. I force myself to go to bed. Yeah. Even if you think, I get more done because the phone's not ringing, and everyone else is asleep in the house and whatever. No, you should go to bed and get a good night's sleep and organize your time. Like I was telling you before, I live by my calendar. Yeah. I live by my schedule and calendar. Yeah. That's how I get a lot of stuff done. Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. And I try to really go to bed on time, even if I do have a second wind or don't feel like it. Yeah. And if you do that for long enough, you'll get into a cycle that you can maintain, and you'll know when it's off. Mm-hmm.
Can you, as we're going to kind of wrap things up here, but I just wanted to make sure we talked about this because I think it's important. Can you comment on prescription sleep aids or taking Benadryl? If someone is, they've sort of developed like a dependency on taking something to sleep, can you just comment on problems with that?
Well, that's the symptomatic approach, which, we tried to give up 20 years ago, is just take this for that. Yeah. Whether it's Benadryl, which is has a narcotic effect, or if it's real narcotics or tranquilizers, or people take all kinds of things. Take this for that approach, and I'm just not for it. I think that what do you get? What if you run out, or what if you get immune to it, or what if it starts to have its own negative side effects, and most of those things do have negative side effects. So I'm okay with them temporarily. If you're really just something going on in your life and you're beat to heck and you just have to, I've personally never used a sleep aid. I've never felt that bad ever. And that's just me though. And I'm, find another way, but try the natural stuff. Melatonin, kava. These would be a little bit safer than Benadryl, I think. But only temporarily. Start doing the other things. Start getting yourself exposed to light and doing exercise and eating right and controlling your blood sugar. Check yourself for food sensitivities and parasites and bacteria and funguses and viruses, and clean yourself up, and in a lot of different ways. Do that. Again, getting up in the morning, getting out in daylight. Like daylight is a great regulator of the circadian rhythm. And don't do late night television, things like that. Yeah. All the stuff, the sleep hygiene things we talked about. Yeah, rather than that, just try all those things first, and then if you need to get a cocktail of certain herbal supplements, there's plenty of them to try. I can't recommend one over the other. The reason is there's no control over the outcome. Yeah. You tell one person it was kava, I totally get mellow, it totally puts me up. Next person, it keeps them up. Right. There's no control over which one is going to work for you.
Right. Yeah, and I've even seen, I personally haven't used sleep aids either, but I've seen in my clients where sometimes they actually feel more tired. Like, it will help them stay asleep, but then the next day they're even more tired. So it's not really helping them to feel more rested.
Yeah. So. Yeah, they're just sort of masking the problem. Yeah.
Absolutely. What, as sort of a take-home message, what's a simple action step plan you can kind of leave our listeners with to start improving their sleep?
I think that the whole idea of diet, I think I probably have everybody get up early. If you have to set your alarm, try to start the day off right with light and eating well. So you're just trying to get the circadian rhythm going. During the day, you're going to have to exercise. You actually need to do something to be tired for. And it's not just mental fatigue. You don't, well, I work all the time and I'm tired, my brain is tired, but your body hasn't got its exercise. So you need to get your body tired as well. So you're going to have to do some exercise. And be careful what you eat and drink before bed. If you're going to eat, do mostly the protein. What you drink. I mean, I would limit caffeine after 1 o'clock. I mean, you could. I don't mind someone drinks coffee in the morning, but don't drink it all day long. It's going to mess you up. Don't eat really big meals. Avoid the alcohol because it's going to definitely wake you up. 4 or 5 hours after alcohol, you're waking up. Maybe try to eliminate big loads of water. Like I wouldn't load up on 32 ounces of water before that.
Right.
Also, just maybe try to, in your sleep hygiene thinking and methodology, don't be in fights. Don't be doing, a lot of exercise, and things like that. Wind down a little bit. Get some kind of a routine in. I think walks are good. Something to relieve stress is good.
Yeah.
That isn't chemical.
Right. Yeah.
Relaxation techniques. For me, deep breathing and prayer work very well. Mm-hmm. But you could do massage. Obviously, married, or couples tend to have sex and stuff. I think that's depending on. Well, never mind. Just saying that's okay if it relaxes you. It's a good thing. If it gets you up and you got to clean the house afterwards, that's not a good thing. But generally, you need to get regular exercise.
Yeah.
Eat, watch what you eat, drink, get into a routine.
Yeah.
There's so many different things, and none of them work for everybody.
Right.
My problem. So when I work, it's one-on-one. What are you doing? And so we like to work with individuals on what work for them.
Yeah.
And that makes it helpful.
Yeah. No, one of the things I teach my clients is to develop their own personal nighttime ritual. What works for you?
Yeah.
Reed, before we go, if someone wants to learn more about you, they want to learn more about your program, services, tell us where to go.
Yeah, well, actually, we have a bonus gift for your listeners. Mm-hmm. It's remember I mentioned the DRESS? Well, we have a guide. You can just get it for free. Go to functionaldiagnosticnutrition.com/BB50, and you know what that stands for. So, functionaldiagnosticnutrition.com. It's spelled the way it sounds.
Yeah.
And I came up with that because I couldn't think of anything longer. And it's /BB50. That'll
awesome.
Get you the free guide. And, Melissa, I'm always happy to be with you. You ask the best questions.
Oh.
Like you actually think about it, and you engage in a conversation. So it makes me feel very comfortable. And
right back at you.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Thank
you so much, Reed. You, as always, you've shared an amazing wealth of information. So this was awesome. And I know our listeners are going to love it.
Okay, I hope it helps. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
And that's